Um, hey, it's the crusty ass camera again, and either good morning or good night, I guess, because welcome back. I'm gonna teach you how to be sad for free, because yes, human emotions are that cheap if you come to think of it. Not to mention that, nonetheless, it tests you with your own feelings as burdens, and really dares your persistence against all odds that you will fall. Um, it could be critical to you. I'm not trying to undermine that. From the top of my head, I can think of something such as like unhealthy mechanisms to get through what seems endless for you, and overdosing on diversions for the case of pressure and tensions, like stress, like managing your dark sides or managing yourself in a way. Sadness is the most accurate way to pronounce human condition, and what you do with what you become interferes with your ability to be aware that you still got you somehow. And just I want to share some information on self-care I learned, and you can see if they can keep your feet bound to the ground. Although I know you're gonna falter once again, even after this, because you're ungrateful, and on top of that, you're forgetful. Yeah. Anyways, um, on this flight of stairs, number one is denial. Like your mind is in the spirit of shock and awe. Um, Dissociation with the present times is frequent as a means of defense mechanism. Um, I would say being overwhelmed is not a feeling, but the truth. When you might say rock bottom is where you crash landed, let's say. Oh, also don't worry, this isn't the part where you cry. Not necessarily, I think so at least. But you know what they say, like different strokes for different folks. Um, and then also they say that they saw me on the news for selling my ankle bracelets to kindergartners because they thought I was the Omnitrix. Which didn't even happen yet. Like that's okay. If you somehow got along with that, the next step, two, which is anger. This is the stage when all things internally show silhouettes through external behaviors. Um, this stage can either be brief or this could carry on to later stages, and it could happen along with the um, other symptoms that could happen later on. So you put others in trial for doing you wrong, which might be the right act, but it could also be for the wrong cause, in the sense that um, as you are putting them in a position of guilt for corrupting your feelings, and rather than calling them out for leading things to happen that didn't go as you planned in your head. Um, your unconscious self is in deep rage, and it's salient to remain the form of self that is being your utmost priority. Um, in a way, anger is necessary for grief, to overcome grief, that is. Moving on, 3. As the hump day of the 5 stages of grief, bargaining, the permanent portion of wishful thinking and letting yourself down. Really. Possibilities are indeed endless, and if they can be set for the future, so can be applied for regrets. Because maybe that one domino was knocked over, and all this mess, because somehow I failed to gaze at ambience for a while, and now I'm here distorting myself here. Like, thoughts or sorrow suggest it's maybe like only if I hadn't thought of even doing this certain thing, or what if I had not taken this route instead at all? You put yourself in imaginary situations and think of like unrealistic outcomes, I guess. But I still see it as an important part of trying to absorb what just happened or what is happening right now. Yeah. I would say that the second step, which is anger, is still lingering here, the strong color uploading is not quite aiming at yourself, but rather the circumstances that you feel engaged in. And like you feel that moment lingering in your head for so long and so strong that you come to think that it's almost you. Like which leads to you eventually despising yourself in the end anyways. Like for example, fashion goes out of style, food expire, and flowers bloom just to wither, just because this logic is just how the world goes around. Um, Bargaining is the most natural reaction because human nature. Yeah, also here's a classic. The fourth step, depression. I'm thinking that perhaps the value that used to occupy your mind is now lost, and now you crack. Perhaps, just maybe, all these symptoms and stages in a sour brew strangled up your sanity. This is the part where your roller coaster goes downhill, and the given is that there is no end, and then you feel like you couldn't care less about how it reaches infinity and back. That's depression. You're involuntarily invested in this state of mind, and you might need outside help to combat this stormy cloud over your head, raining on your mind where parades are supposed to march on and on. Like, also anybody can be a victim, because anybody can be vulnerable. Just like how I could rob clues to snip the day away, because I could be bored, for no reason at all. Which was just a one-time thing. So far. And in the end of the flight of stairs, there's number 5, which is acceptance. Coming to terms with reality. So this is neither feeling glad or gloomy. It's more about what has happened and what direction you will have to take in order to move on from the past. So like before another present becomes another past that just piles over you in the end. Like mind over matter with hindsight that you must have acquired from gathering the small mistakes you made is the gist of what you would tell yourself in an attempt to reconcile with your mind again, which you once lost. This varies for everybody else. This could feel like being afloat in streams of water that even themselves wouldn't know where to go if they had a mind of their own, or being able to console yourself as you go along the way back home. And the heart of the matter is ultimately listening to yourself. That tells you, and you are saying that all you want is silence. So you obviously you try to see if you can breathe in and out, and you try to notice again like what goes on, rather than memories, thorns. I think that's how you end a date with grief in a healthy way. I mean, for myself, I know that I would go back and forth in the abundance of rising and falling actions, like to the point where I wasn't sure of myself anymore, and I couldn't measure my emotions to the amount of happiness or to the size of grief that I had. And I just knew not knowing me felt unbearable as some sentient creature. I'm alive, alright, yeah, but when am I gonna get to live a split second? And maybe like that's why people see emotionless people as cold and dead inside and devoid of affection, but in the end, they or we do not lose the title of human, and whether that be honorable or disgusting, the key focus should be on that you don't change. Time changes, as if it does at their will, and you can try so hard to grasp a raindrop because when it rains it pours. Like, just let the weather be felt by you. So yeah, in conclusion, there are no same trees in a big picture of a forest. These trees are called trees and they don't have names you would like to call them since their meaning is not your perception. At least not necessarily. Also, if we dive deeper into this analogy, I guess the two trees in this portrait or the painting of a big picture never dies, but the painting or the canvas would age to lose its face and the facing of paintings. Uh, you, you would know it's all in your head when your thoughts think your mind is a space with no boundaries, or that it's also temporary. Anyways, when you think time is an illusion, gravitating toward fluid definitions such as the present tense of the present, and how it's such an undying idea, so vague and imperfect. Um, no answer, but this question just lingers on, I guess. Like, in all this mess, how are you gonna see yourself through this? So, in this struggle, sometimes people end up just seeing themselves as the mess that is life itself. They think it depicts who they are. Um, which brings me to my point that you are yourself when you think you're you, but not to mention that you're you also when you think you're not yourself either. Um, I think it's necessary to fight your feelings at times, as it it doesn't determine you. You give yourself your own meaning, um, and you shouldn't like yourself with your own lies. So, just in case, happy birthday and sleep tight.